Buyer beware. These are the top 3 mistakes you can make on your contract. Stay tuned. Promise you, it'll be worth it. Good day, Toronto. Welcome to another episode of Prime Properties TV. So glad you could join me here today. One of the challenges when you're kind of dealing with real estate transactions is the legal complexities that come along with it, okay? Traditionally in real estate, the way we operate in Ontario, a lawyer really isn't brought into the transaction until a deal is firm, unless you have conditions allowing for a lawyer to review it. So in a very, very hot market, which we see a lot in Toronto, the lawyers aren't brought in until the contract is set in stone. So this is why it's important when you buy a property, the agent you're buying with or representing you must fully understand the repercussions of the agreement of purchase and sale. And trust me, I've encountered a ton of agents that don't really understand the consequences of certain like pre-printed language that we have in our standard OREA purchase agreement, or they may not even understand the kind of like the commonly used languages that we put in the contract in Schedule A. Because what I've noticed is, and there's nothing bash against realtors, but it's our way of educating them. It's when a realtor gets their license, there really isn't too much emphasis, from what I remember, on like the practical real life languages when they come and pass the course. So just because they finish the courses doesn't mean they understand the legalese that comes with the purchase agreement, okay? Like most realtors I know, they start out using the pre-printed language in the OREA standard purchase agreements and the pre-printed ones that the brokerage provides without actually knowing what the purpose of the legal needs that it comes with. So this is a fully public service announcement. Buyer beware when you're picking your agent. But without further ado, here are the top 3 mistakes I see in the purchase agreement, okay? Number 1, chattels and fixtures. Whew, this can get ridiculous, okay? The definition of a chattel and a fixture has kind of been like blending so much in recent years that it's really hard to define, okay? But technically a chattel is something that can be removed from the property without damaging it, okay? So this is like if your microwave was in a little cubby that slides in, that can come out because it's just plugged in. Now a fixture is something that's mounted onto the property, like being affixed to it, so that if you remove it, it causes damage to the property. So back to the microwave example, if it's a built-in into the wall unit with like the framing, that's a fixture. So a huge mix-up happens with like, you see a lot of wall-mounted TVs because the wall mount is technically affixed to the property, but the TV is attached to the wall mount. So technically it's a chattel. And you can see how this gets really confusing because you really only see this when you do this experience, when you kind of go through enough deals. So this is why it's very important for you to list out everything that's included and excluded. Now, kind of with the rise of smart home appliances, the kind of chattels and fixtures, like I was saying earlier, it's constantly being blurred. So you really have to be very careful and don't assume everything that you see in the house is included. Just list everything that's included and excluded out in the purchase agreement, okay? It's a big mistake I see very often. Remember, if you like content like this, where I'm trying to protect you guys as investors and real estate buyers, make sure you give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the Prime PPTO channel. There's a button for it right here, okay? Now, the second mistake that I see a lot of people making is not having the correct date for the title search, okay? Remember when I said earlier that the lawyers are kind of brought into the transaction like most of the time when the deal is firm? Well, the lawyers perform a very crucial component of the transaction, which is called the title search, okay? The last day for the title search, they usually have is in a pre-printed form of the OREA standard purchase agreement. However, okay, the date that's placed there is super important because what the lawyer does is when they search the title, if it's too late, there may not be enough time to fix the title. But if it's searched too early, they maybe still be able to encumber the property. And let me explain what I mean by that. So maybe there's like an outstanding condo fee that the original seller hasn't paid for. Maybe there are liens that the contractor put on. Your lawyer is going to do a title search to make sure that when you buy the property and you close it, it's free and clear of any of those problems that is associated with the title of the property. So that when you buy the property, any of the stuff the seller put against it is gone, okay? Now, if you put the title search too early, like I was saying earlier, they can still do stuff to it. But if you put it too late, there's not enough time to fix it. So it's kind of like the title search needs to be in that perfect little spot, kind of like, you know, Goldilocks, you know, not too hot, not too cold. In our case, not too early, not too late, okay? The third thing is not necessarily a mistake, but it's just an inexperienced thing I see a lot of agents doing, and it kind of affects the buyers a lot, and that's kind of putting the order incorrectly of when to buy and sell. Now, a lot of agents don't understand the mortgage side and the legal side that comes along with the closing, because as a buyer, you have to understand that if you're caught in a bad place, you're in a really rough position between buying and selling at the wrong time. And let me kind of explain that. I may have confused you a little bit. If you need the profits of selling your home to close what you bought, I would 100% recommend you sell first and give yourself maybe a 1 week timer between the selling house to close and the buying house to close. Now, technically you're homeless for a few days, but if you know that there could be little issues that come up, you want to have that delay, because if you need the funds for the selling of the house to close the buying of the house, then if you get delayed on the selling of the house, it's going to delay your buying on the house. And what that's going to do is it's going to cause you a delay on the selling, and you're going to pay penalties on it, and it's going to cause a delay on the buying, which is also going to cause you penalties, which is a double penalty that is your fault. And that becomes very, very stressful, especially if you haven't moved it, when you mix all that stuff in, okay? Now, you have to be careful of that, but if you have the money to close the house that you bought without needing the funds of the selling, then that's fine. You could ignore this. Or if you set up something what we call a bridge loan, which is you go to the bank saying, hey, Mr. Bank, Mr. Lender, right? I already closed this. You see my contract. I've already bought this. Can you give me the funds for, like, you know, call it a week, 7 days or something, so that you can own both properties? That's something I would recommend doing, and make sure that's why I said you need a good realtor to recommend you the mortgage product for this, because that allows you to technically own both homes for a few days and makes your move a lot easier. So those are two ways you can mitigate kind of getting caught. But I've seen a lot of this happen when you don't kind of line it up correctly, where, you know, the date on the buying kind of fluctuates because it's a pre-construction. So if that gets kind of pushed out and then you still need the funds for the sale, it becomes a lot of problem for you in the future. So make sure you kind of set that up correctly and have all your options set up for a double closing. We've done many of them, but if you do them incorrectly, it could spell disaster, okay? So if you're looking to make a move in the Toronto real estate market and you want to make sure you're guided by the correct and good realtors, kind of like us, right? Make sure you reach out to me. I'll put my screens on the contact right here. Until next time, guys, your move, your future. Now that you're done watching this one, how about this one? Oh, you know what? This one's good too. Ooh, this one's really good. You know what? Just watch them both.